All right. Well, I'm Ben Wolcott. Thank you for having me here. I live and ranch in Mancos, Colorado. My family's been ranching there for about 50 years, and we raise beef cattle on continuously grazed pastures. So this is a picture of part of our ranch here. I also was a previous board member on the Mancos Conservation District, and do a lot of work with helping the Mancos Watershed Stream Management Plan come to fruition. So I bring my own ag opinions and reach out to a lot of producers to try and drag them to the table, kicking and screaming, so that they can share their experiences and concerns with the group. So on our ranch, we use a grazing chart to track our forage utilization. So we've seen a significant decrease in forage production, and we believe it's due to a lack of water, both in precipitation and irrigation. So less water means you're going to have less forage, which translates to stressed populations of wildlife and livestock and reduced herd sizes. So this is a picture of the mighty Mancos River. There is a little water in it. This is on our ranch. And this is how our framework for what we have to make our decisions on. Water is the limiting resource that determines on our ranch what we can produce. If you add more water, we pretty much get more of everything else. Being able to plan for that water availability is extremely important to our business. All of the modeling and everything we've been talking about is like watching the morning news for us. Are we going to have water today or not? It has a lot to do with, do we adjust our herd sizes up or down? If we're going to have a year like you can see in the photo, there's a head gate underwater there somewhere, and the river somewhere in the picture, but everything is underwater. On years like that, we need to make decisions to increase our herd size to take advantage of the increased forage production we're going to have. Or if we're going to have a year like you saw on the previous slide where there's no water whatsoever, we need to make immediate changes or suffer the consequences. So on our ranch, we have critical dates that we look at, snow-tell data, reservoir levels, rain gauges on the ranch, and precipitation amounts, and add them together we have a series of dates that we make decisions on to take that information and turn it into useful concepts. So we know that if Jackson Reservoir is at 60% and we've had less than 6 inches of precipitation in the last 12 months, then we're going to sell every cow over 12 years old, whatever. Like, we have a very laid out plan. And that's what allows us to navigate shortage, is having made the decisions ahead of time, then taken the emotion out of it. So we're being proactive instead of reactive, and have these plans pre-thought out with various courses of action so that we can be successful. So over the last 2 years, we've reduced our herd size by 95% through selling and leasing. This was part of our plan whenever we reached various levels of water and forage availability. And it's changing all of the time. Like, now we're increasing it as forage increases. But it's been very effective in allowing us to manage our grass and maintain pasture cover throughout the winter and graze continuously. But whenever a producer is faced with a water shortage, they have to make a choice. They either have to purchase a replacement, which in my case would be buy hay, which is using someone else's water to produce forage and you're paying to bring it in, and that's very expensive in the moment. Another option is you could reduce your demand for the resource by destocking or changing your operation, and that has the impact of reducing cash flow later because you're not going to have something to sell. So you have to plan for either event, or things could become catastrophic in a hurry. So to us, the land is the more important resource, and the cattle are the tools to work the land. So we feel that reducing the herd best matches our values. So these photos are, the larger one and the lower one are the same point. That's a photo point that we take repetitive pictures of to track changes over time. On the left is a pasture that's 2020 in July, and that hasn't been grazed for 8 months. Kind of a dry year, but not horrendous. Then the lower photo is the same photo point 2021. That hasn't been grazed in 8 months except by grasshoppers. And it was only grazed very briefly between the two photos. So that was our grand total of grass growth. I think it just died. So that's the environment we're working with right now and trying to adapt to. The upper photo is the pasture residual we try to leave after grazing. Just a quick measurement of, did we leave enough cover, adequate cover to allow the pasture to recover. So Mancos has this dynamic watershed that is kind of unique. Our ranch is on 6 different ditches and water systems, and there are over 50 small ditches in the Mancos area. They all have adjudicated water of various priorities. So pick any number of numbers, and it's all in one ditch. There's also supplemental irrigation water to many users on those ditches in various amounts that go to different places, so it's not all cut and dry. The watershed is also over-appropriated, which means that there's more demand for water than there usually is, basically. And also, because there's no on-stream reservoirs, there's a huge diurnal swing. So every day the snow melt and thaw effect and the increase and decrease of evaporative changes at different elevations swing the river over 100% change every 12 hours. So it makes it really fun to manage how you're going to get water to a senior water user downstream whenever 20 CFS are going to vanish in the next 4 hours. So all of this comes together to create this strange environment that we have to make this work. And that's a picture of a diversion on the Mancos. So on a normal year, whatever that is, I don't know anymore, but that management complexity results in tons of ditches making daily or more than once a day changes in the amounts of water they're using. And eventually, what normally happens is something gets just slightly slipped and miscalculated, and there's a hole in the river where there is no water coming down. Pretty normal. It gets recovered fast, and the water commissioner always does a great job. But what I've noticed is once the river goes dry, 2 CFS could keep it wet forever. But once there's a dry spot, it takes an exponential amount of water to re-wet it. So part of our management goals are to prevent that from happening, because once you make the mistake, it's much harder to recover than it is to simply coast on by. The other odd thing that I've noticed, that I noticed last year, there was a very strange water year. There was no supplemental irrigation from Jackson, and because there basically wasn't any snow, most of the junior water users never had water. So it was a very simple system. There were just a few people who got to irrigate. I have equipment that was winterized in 2020, and I still haven't needed it yet. That simple system, taking most of the complexity out, for whatever strange reason, worked amazingly well. It was a horrible water year, but it was like the smoothest irrigation management I've ever seen. So something about that we might be able to learn from. Taking those moving pieces out allowed the textbook management of a river that normally does not manage that way. So we have this glimmer of hope. The Mancos Watershed Stream Management Plan is gathering data and concerns and ideas from everyone in the watershed, and is trying to figure out how to turn the silver lining into a management action or a group of management actions. And maybe it's not possible. But some ideas that have come out of this are, can we learn as irrigators and water managers about the timing and arrival and receding of irrigation water, the diurnal effects, and other losses and gains in the river, and actually understand the cycle that we're living with. We have some idea, but I feel like after watching last year, we don't know nearly enough. Also, there's another project, the Smart Meter project. The idea is, could we take data from those 50 ditch diversions, the stream gauges, just everything, and compile it into one place and understand the uses and the arrivals and the lack of water in various places and build more effective management tools. So as with changing the stocking rate on a pasture in the ranch, could we slightly tweak the timing of irrigation use even just a little bit that would grant us the ability to better manage the water? And I don't really know, but my hope is that that is possible, to take last year's perfect irrigation season, if you will, and translate that into something we can use on a normal water year. So drought has really given us the opportunity to innovate and try new ways and try new things to make the water go further. So this is a picture of our reduced herd on a pasture that was very briefly irrigated amidst the drought last year, and that's what we like to see. When I hear the phrase navigating shortage, I think of trying new or very old and forgotten things, ideas and practices that allow our ranch to stay financially profitable, which means we get to keep trying, and more importantly, ecologically beneficial. We want to sustain our environment, be good land stewards, and make the place better. So I truly believe that land managers in the Southwest will innovate and not only navigate this shortage and changing climate, but become able to thrive. Thank you.